How you guys doing, Chinemaji family? We are back with the Chinemaji podcast, and it's been a while since we had a new guest on the platform, and we're super excited about 2020. Can't believe it's already almost March.
March.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost March, right?
Q1.
Yeah, Q1 is halfway through, so we are excited to be back and have an amazing guest this week, as per usual. And we have the one and only Chris Orwa.
The one and only.
And Chris, how you doing?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer. Always having so many things going on, but I'm doing okay.
Right. How is 2020 treating you so far?
Well, I think there's so many things to do, more opportunities, and thinking about doing different things, doing more like some entrepreneurship on the side, because I've been working, but I think like I need to figure out a way of out of work thing. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Hopefully your employer doesn't hear this podcast.
No, the employer should bless you. It's like, hey, if you're, for other companies, like I think in Google, if you want to launch something within the company, they encourage you, and then they even give you the seed funding for that, or you can even build something within the company, and it becomes a new product. So it doesn't have to be just moving out and setting on a company. It's just building something new that gets exciting and will probably change the market, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I mean, mindset, right? We're not in that part of the world. we still struggle with this notion. But listen, I think in this day and age, most ambitious people are looking to actually try their hand at entrepreneurship, trying to solve some problems that they see around them. And kudos to you. I mean, for me, I think entrepreneurs are the people who move the needle, right?
There's a new term as well. It's called entrepreneurship, where you launch something within the company, where
right.
you don't necessarily have to move out of the company.
Right.
It's not like innovating within the company. So that's great too.
Yeah. That's it's about innovation and solving problems. You don't have to be out there as an entrepreneur. You could be anywhere. And honestly, this notion of being an entrepreneur sometimes is misunderstood. I think everybody who is trying to solve a problem anywhere they are in the world, where they're owning the whole problem, if you will, and trying to insert a solution into society or wherever it is that they're existing in, that's entrepreneurship in a sense.
Yeah, it's very tough out here. If you take away the like the romanticized side of an entrepreneur, you came from nothing and built anything. You have to find customers. You have to find someone who's paying you. You have to set up all the business processes. You have to set up an office. You have to do all the legal stuff. It's very tough. And I think one of the things that the lesson gets missed when the entrepreneurial train is being passing around. It's a high-stress job, or it's a high-stress endeavor. No one prepares you for the stress.
It is crazy. Having been through it over the last 2 years, it is definitely an intense thing. But anyway, let's kind of move into introductions. Chris Orwa, lead data scientist at I&M Bank currently.
Yes.
And welcome to the podcast. Super excited to have you. There's so much ground we can cover, but the themes today are going to be really I guess tech and data science, your path into that, and your interest in entrepreneurship. You've obviously worked at startups, and giving us a sense of what that experience has been like. The purpose of the podcast is to just give people some insights and some grounding in terms of reality. Some of the things we've already been talking about so far, so people don't have to repeat the same mistakes that other people have made, or they can actually develop insights in the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem in Nairobi. So localizing knowledge and distributing it to our ecosystem. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you go to school, and how did you get into tech? What was your path?
Oh, well, maybe to start from childhood. So if you ask anyone from like a family or friends, like, what is this guy gonna be? Everyone's like, no doubt, this guy's gonna be like an electrical engineer, because I used to take radios apart. All this, tinkering thing that I used to do. So. Oh,
you were one of those kids?
Oh yeah, I used to have like fans in the bedroom, like different. Tried making up a petrol motion machine by having like one motor as a generator, and the other one is, connected together. A success card that goes to the tune of the music and all those crazy small chat. So you can imagine the bedroom that I shared with my brother was full of trash. And they're like, what the heck?
Electronics.
On it, electronics and kind of thing. So it was very clear to like everyone, and I wanted to be like electronics engineer.
Okay.
So that's the path I pursued. Even going through high school, I was more interested in sciences. And when I finished high school, I remember I was asking my uncle, like, what should I do? It's like, don't do electronic engineering, you end up as a radio repair guy. Do computer science.
Radio repair guy.
Yeah, then I was like, oh, what's this computer science thing? Then I was like, what about computer engineering? So I went to, they used to release the course outline, that I checked out computer science and computer engineering, and I was like, oh, they're not so different from the course outline. Then he was like, hey.
Which school? Which university?
That was KU, Kenyatta University. Then I was like, oh, okay, doesn't seem so bad. Then he was like, hey, computer science, you could create websites, manage databases and that kind of stuff. So when I did computer science in KU, I found it interesting. So it was like half the course was like a lot of mathematics, bit of physics, and then programming in that case. And I was mostly interested in the very technical aspects, the mathematics and the physics of it. And by the time I was getting to fourth year, I was like, the only thing I could feel like was, so we did a bit of game development, which is like extremely technical, particularly mathematics and kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, I want to create games, like all these good games like Crisis. The game engines are like really crazy to create. So we took a course, we were like 6 people called Advanced AI. We were like, hey, maybe we could, learn how to create interesting characters in the game. Then this lecturer came in and was like, we're going to do Advanced AI, but specifically we're going to do data mining, which is like a small aspect of AI. Then we're like, oh God, we didn't come here for this. Then it was like, hey, just hold on. So he started teaching us about algorithms and all the things he was doing, like predicting fraud for different insurance companies, predicting stock market movement. And I was like, this thing is so cool. It's so great. Like, what else can you do? You can predict weather. And he just kept on like giving us examples. And I was like, from that on, I was just like mind blown.
Wow.
I didn't even think of anything else.
So let me ask you a question. Was this part of the computer science coursework? Was it a class at KU, or what was this?
Oh yes, it was. So in the second year, you do a course called AI, which is a basic AI, how robots work, and then there's an advanced AI, which is now the mathematics, the algorithms, the machine learning, and everything else. So it's more in depth, and it incorporates all the mathematics you've learned, which is why I got interested in it. Most of the people who were doing like web development were like, why are you learning calculus? Why are you learning linear algebra?
Why are you going back to math?
Yeah, we're not going to apply this anywhere.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the 3 years of mathematics that we did already has an application in all these algorithms. So like this is where everything connects. This is where it makes all sense. So yeah, so it was a unit, it's an optional unit at the 4th year level.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So it was an optional unit.
Yeah, it was an optional unit. So we were only 6 of us.
Interesting.
Who ended up doing that course. Funnily enough, none of those 6 people actually are data scientists right now.
Interesting.
One of the guys is a software developer. The other 2 guys just did it for fun. Another guy just did it because he needed to fill something fancy in his course. So it was an optional unit amongst others. There's another called neural networks.
Right.
Yeah, for that case. So that's where the bug
hit you. It's interesting how none of those people you, I guess, took the class with are in data science AI right now.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when we were doing the course, the term data science never existed. This was like in 2009. Right?
Okay.
Data science never existed. The only term was called data mining.
Okay.
And it had a very specific definition where you use statistical methods to come up with new insights, but those have to be useful. So the 2 key words that you've always been taught. It has to be new. It has to be something that a business didn't know previously. But apart from that, it doesn't have to be useful to the business.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also something you're taught. It's called CRISP DM, cross industry standard process for data mining. So different at that time, there were different companies, IBM, Stata. Everyone was doing a bit of data mining, but it was not standardized. So they came up, standardized this, created this standard format, how you have to do data mining. And it was so actually, I was like, you'd call yourself a data mining practitioner.
So what does data mining mean? It sounds like you're going into databases and trying to mining for insights.
So they only say 2 things. You have to find new information, whether you're doing comparing, you're doing regression, whether you're doing whatever you do, right? You have to come up with information. I give you a database about transactions in the supermarket. Okay. Is there anything new you can tell me that I didn't know as a product manager, right? And is it useful to my business? Can I do that? That's the two definitions. Those two aspects make up data mining. And so later on, when the word data science comes in, which is all over in the air, it's not nailed down. Right. So for me,
but let me ask you a question. How is data science different than data mining? Because it seems like at the end of the day, the goal is the same thing, right? No, give me insights and let me.
There is no standard definition of data science.
But the practical one, in my mind, from a business standpoint, okay, help me make my business better. Help me make me more competitive.
Yeah, but if someone says I visualize data, that's data science. I do. You could think of machine learning, statistical analysis, anything that has to do with data goes in.
Data science. But the thing is still this. You visualize it as, so what? To what end?
Yeah, so the reason why for me it was even troubling at first was like, what is this data science thing?
Right.
Everyone, the spectrum is so wide.
Right.
But when it comes to data mining, it is so specific.
Right.
That you know whether you did data mining or not. Right. And it was very easy. Like these are the algorithms so that the categories you can do. You can do classification. You can do this, and the lack of that. So at that point, now that people went into the market because there was no title, there was no job. There was no job. There was no data scientist. There's no company.
Seeking those skills.
Yeah, and I remember that time in 2010. Was it 2011? That's when Kaggle was launched.
Who?
Kaggle.com.
Kaggle. Okay.
Yeah. They got launched, and they're trying to define these people going for conferences. And maybe not to segue into another story, I was like, this thing is so cool. We're just trying to find data and play around with data and just discover new things. And so I had a colleague who was also, he never took the course, but I used to take my notes and give it to him. Like, hey, this is what we launched today.
Right. Wow.
And then he was like, oh my God, this thing sounds so like mind-blowing and kind of stuff. So we'd go find data anyway and just play around with it.
That's awesome. Yeah. That you had a passion for.
Yeah, it was cool because I never thought that I'd end up doing this as a job. This was a hobby, pure hobby. You go work at a cyber cafe, then do some networking here and there, then come back in the evening and just try hammer out this thing out. So my colleague is called Elvis. He was an entrepreneur. He was in the university. He used to like do print posters for people. Sell things in the school canteen.
Was he also technical?
He was very technical. He was doing software engineering. I was doing computer science. The course is the same up to third year, and then the specialization are different. So, but the basics are the same. So I was like, hey, I was trying to figure out, hey, what can we do with this thing? Then one day we decided, hey, let's. I was just telling a story. I've been trying to find a book. I can't find it. Google is not being very helpful. I couldn't find a website where you could just go put in a partial information and just gives you exactly what you want. We talked through it, and he was like, hey, how with all these machine learning things you've learned, we could put this thing to use. The next day we were walking down the street from KU to Kahala, and then we asked the guy, hey, how do you call search in your local language? Then he said, I think he said Kwetha or Gwetha, which is really Kikuyu. Then he just called a friend, registered kwetha.co.ke, went and registered the domain, called another guy to set up the website. The next day, rented a one-bedroom house in Kahala, bought furniture and computers, and like, hey Chris, we have a company. I was like, okay, so
what next?
What next? So we're going to build a company to give people precise information. It's sort of like ask.com, but now automated.
So you're building another search engine?
Yeah, so at that point in time, when you wanted to know like who's the 5th president of the US, well now if you do that in Google, it pops up and answer immediately.
Yeah.
But back in 2009 and 10, that was not there. You had to show you links, you had to click that link and read a whole Wikipedia page and find the answer at the bottom.
Interesting.
So we just like index those pages and extract that information for you. So like, where is, let's say, you're going for an interview, you're late, where is Westgate Mall?
Right.
It's 2 meters from you, or it's.
How would you? Okay, I don't want to get too technical with this because I'm very curious about this type of stuff.
Yeah.
How would you get that information and surface it very quickly? Because you need some kind of. you'd have to API into Google's mapping engine because you didn't have a mapping engine. Or?
Oh yeah, so Google indexes all websites in the world,
Right.
right? We can compete with Google.
Right.
Like most of the answers we can give you are already on Wikipedia.
Right.
So Wikipedia.
So Wikipedia was your backend repository
Wikipedia was
of data.
backend. Yeah, so there's a Wikipedia API. We just index everything.
But how would you be able? Wikipedia never tells you the distance between places like that.
Yeah, so those are like additional things. Once you can answer, so we can only answer 6 things: what, where, when, right? So the question like how and why you cannot answer. So you're like, hey, you release the like version 1 of the website.
Okay.
We can only answer say what is this, and then you answer it. Then you build upon that, and then when is this?
This
then
is awesome.
Yeah, so you iterate and gradually you're able to answer those questions, and where now you can integrate maps and etc. But it's supposed to be a very basic thing that helps you to get answers quickly when you need them, right? So we'll build that website, and so we launched it, and apparently it went viral, and at some point I think we were looking at Alexa.com. We were like the 8th most visited website in Kenya.
What?
Yeah, and it was like, oh man, we got something here, and Elvis was fired up, and at some point we had like a staff of 10. Right?
How are you funding this thing?
So all this was from Elvis. So remember from first year I used to run all these businesses.
Okay.
So he had like some war chests sitting somewhere, and he was like, hey, maybe this is the thing that will propel,
take us to the next level.
Take us to the next level. We'll sit down in the evening and read about Steve Jobs and how he built Apple and that kind of stuff, and just nerd out in the evening. Like, hey, we could do this thing, we change this into this stuff. So it was great, and I think Elvis had the better. He was running most of the businesses. I was just most of the technical aspects running it. There was some offers for like investments.
Really?
Yeah.
From where?
I think there was a South African guy who got in contact with Elvis, and he was like, "Hey, can I invest some money?" And
how did he find you?
There was a contact there. I was like, "Hey."
How did he find? I guess people just look. I guess investors are in the business of looking for places to put money. So you somehow found.
Yeah. So I think he just saw the email or he went to the website. I found a contact, and he just sent an email to that. Yeah, and it was like, "Hey, this thing is like really catching up, and it was so exciting." I was trying to recruit guys we worked with. One of the guys we did the AI course with in KU. I was like, recruited him. It was like one of our fast recruits, and just getting people interesting to work. They're like, hey, let's just go with this thing. So it was great, but we never thought about the monetization aspect. Like, just build this thing until it becomes great. At this point, it was like, hey, we have to think about monetization because
we gotta make some money.
And the war chest is getting
thin.
It's getting thinner by the day.
It's now a war purse. It's not a war chest anymore.
Yeah, it's no longer a war purse. Yeah, then like, okay, so we wanted to build like an advertising model. It didn't get finished in time, and development team is getting bigger, and then we were like, hey, let's build another website.
So let me ask you a question. So basically, you guys were going through this thing without a business strategy attached to it.
Yeah, and I think we were just like 22-year-olds from university, thinking like, we're gonna be the next Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and we're just going with it. And business strategy comes first.
Mm-hmm. In our market, especially. Right?
Yeah, like you could have the highest traffic in Kenya, but if you cannot monetize it, or you don't have a plan on how to monetize it,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So cool. So after that, you moved into. So you've had some. So that was your first. I didn't even know this about you. So you've actually taken a run at a startup right out of school.
Oh yeah, that's right out of college for about 2 years. Okay. Until now, we couldn't make any money, and you're like, hey,
shut up shop.
Close shop. Close shop. Went back home. Yeah. Figure something to do. So after that, I briefly worked as an FX trader.
Okay.
So there was a friend who was doing FX, introduced me how to do FX. So got in a bit of money, but I was also consulting on the side. And then I became an FX trader for a while. It was mildly successful, and then I got an offer to work for iHab because I was in connection with the people working at iHab, and they were looking for a data scientist. So I joined iHab as a junior data scientist. For some of their social media.
You must have been one of the first data scientists with that title in our market, I would imagine.
Well, probably yes, I don't know, but at that point I remember.
How many other data scientists did you know at the time with the title? Or
probably none, because I met Jessica Colasso, who was running iHub Research at that point, and then she'd be going to conferences, and she was like, hey, there's all this thing called data science, and at that point, so together with Elvis, we did a blog post. We just collected Safaricom scratch cards, and we were trying to break the code that was there. We did it partially successfully, and then we sent it to iHub, and they posted it in the blog, and it was viral. And then Jessica was like, this is what data science is, from what she had gone to the conference.
Right.
This is what data science is. And then she asked me to actually come in and do the same thing for the projects that they have. So I think my first title was Junior Data Scientist. Then I was paired up with an Australian guy who came in as a volunteer. And he had a PhD in quantum mathematics.
Wow.
And he was, modeling risk for traders in the HSBC Bank in Australia. And he was showing me what he did, then I was like, I don't think, from his end, they were called quantitative modelers in Australia. Right? But it's the same thing. You look at trades and you look at which one are risky, and you advise traders, get out of this position, etc. But the level of math was
next level.
I was like, I don't even think I should even get closer to that, right? But he had not done machine learning stuff. He had done the really hardcore math in that case. So he was just interested in what all this machine learning stuff is all about. So at that point, all of us, we had the title data scientist, but because he had the crazy math, it was called senior data scientist, and it was called the junior.
What was he doing here?
Oh, interesting story. So
brief version.
The brief version. So his girlfriend moved to Kenya. He was doing a lot of some very interesting work, and so decided to leave his job in Australia and then come to Kenya. And then I think he got bored, and he's like, I gotta volunteer.
Okay. So he was just following his girlfriend.
Yeah, he was just following his girlfriend to Kenya, and then he got bored, and he was like, I gotta find something.
So I can do,
Yeah, and then I think he went online and found iHub, and he's like, hey, I could come volunteer, because at that point iHub had a graduate exchange program or something like that. Then he came in and joined, and so he was joined as a volunteer, and then he became an employee later on. Yeah, so he was just like a mad scientist roaming the world. Yeah.
And so after that, what did you move to after iHub?
Yeah, so I stayed at iHub for almost 4 years.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so different positions, a data scientist, and then became a lead data scientist. We had a consultancy unit, consulted that for a while, and then left.
So what type of consulting were you doing, and for who?
So this was basically with mercenaries.
Okay.
You get called into the company, you have a problem that needs solving, and we solve it. But it's a very wide-ranging. I think one of the most interesting ones was there's a company in Tanzania. They wanted to advise farmers what they should grow for a longer period, and also the likelihood of their land turning into a desert. So we were given 30 years worth of satellite images, month by month, for 30 years.
Wow.
And using that, you're supposed to, using the pixels, coloring, green and white, etc., to predict an area where it's likely to turn into a desert.
Interesting.
Kind of thing. So it's very heavy processing, extract all the pixel values, pass it into something on the SPI, and then you give a value, and then they'll text a farmer. Whatever model you've built, they text the farmer for that. So.
And what would this farmer see?
The farmer will just get a simple text messages
saying,
in the next 18 months, your land is likely to be more dry, so don't plant cassavas.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
this is very useful information, right? It's actionable insights?
Yes, it's very actual insights. So the work of the company is to advise farmers what to grow, primarily. And so one of the things they looked at is satellite images. So that was one of the best data sources to tell you likelihood certification. And that one tells you maize, blah, 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 grows over this area. And then is to avoid unnecessary losses for farmers. Because depending on the weather patterns, some crops will do well.
Yeah, and so you can predict what actions to take based on all that information.
Yeah, so
So what how successful was this? I mean, in your view,
I would say, okay, so as a data scientist, when you're consulted to just build that model, your work ends once you build that model.
So you don't follow through.
So you don't follow through, and also they don't let you through in all those areas. So but from our end, that was really interesting and successful and very impactful work that we did. So and it was also very technical. And
then after that, what was next after iHub? What was the next?
So after iHub, I joined Brave Venture Labs.
Okay.
So they were just launching, figuring out how to use AI for talent placement.
a very difficult problem to solve.
It is, and we took on a research approach, which is like, we don't know all the answers, but we're going to have this journey. So we assume that there's some information about you, either from your CV, how you write, and everything that you are, how you express yourself, that can tell whether you can be...
Semantic information into...
Yeah, both, semantic is part of it, right? But there's also other things, your code, and etc. That would definitely tell me that...
It sounds like a very solvable problem with
yes.
AI, right? I mean, I'm sure it probably is.
Yes,
right?
they're still solving that problem yet. Yeah, but there's certain aspects about somebody you can tell, like, can you work in a corporate company? Do you work well in a corporate company? Do you work well in a startup? Do you work well in a mid-sized company? What kind of team do you best work with? So once you break down the problem, and then you figure out, can AI solve that problem, and which data source is needed for that. So we built some systems, we did some experiments here and there. I think it was I'd say mildly successful, because sometimes when context changes, the systems break and you have to either rebuild the models or figure out what did we miss, or is this data source even reliable for certain questions. So I think the best thing in this kind of approach is to break down the problem and figure out, in this recruitment, in this problem of talent placement,
what are the elements of it?
Yeah, what are the elements of it? Is there a subset, or is there a question that the AI or machine learning can solve very well? Yeah, so I did that for about 1.5 years at
Brave.
At Brave. Then from Brave I moved to Safaricom.
Okay.
So Safaricom was launching Safaricom Alpha, which is the innovation arm of the company. And the idea was to look at products at Safaricom, or come up with products that Safaricom would launch in the next
M-Pesa, basically.
The next M-Pesa.
The next big thing for
Safaricom. Big thing. So can you go through data and come up with interesting...
and they recruited a pretty kick-ass team, right?
Oh, it's just that they did. We were about 8 data scientists.
But the whole Alpha thing...
The whole Alpha team was like massive, from UX designers, product managers. It was a whole...
And some of the people I know who worked there were just people they are the top of their kind of...
Yeah, I'd say one of the places that I had was great because it had connections. You'd meet everyone from around.
It was an aggregator of talent.
Yeah, it was an aggregator from
Nairobi.
Yeah, so it's a very good place to meet cool people and
exchange ideas.
Safaricom just met kick-ass people.
Talent.
Yeah.
Top talent.
Yeah, that was absolutely.
So why didn't Alpha not work?
Oh, that's a tough question. Extremely tough. I can't put my finger on it, right? Because first of all, I'm working in a very small segment of Alpha. It had separate units. There's a data unit, there's a product unit, there's a software development unit. But innovation. It's easy to say I'm going to innovate, but if you say how we're going to innovate,
that's the key.
That's the key thing. And generally, when you look at how long would it take you to have a successful innovation, right? That's one question you gotta ask. The second thing is, what role do you want to innovate specifically? Because if you look at an enterprise like Safaricom, it's like a very massive company. Right? Yeah. They do several things. You have support staff, you have core staff, you have your profit centers, you have your cost centers. So you got to figure out where you want to place your innovation.
So the question becomes, my view of this was Alpha was going to build non-Safaricom related things, like external facing, new markets, new innovations, completely separate from the existing structure of the business. Is that not true?
Oh, well, okay. I couldn't answer that high level question.
Okay.
Right? But why do we know, like, even if you're going to be a separate unit, right? You still need the mother company, or the mother company needs you. It's a symbiotic.
Yeah, that's why those things don't work, because mother companies, their job is to protect their crown jewels, the existing business. That by definition can stifle innovation, because innovation is about experiments and the ability to move quickly, ask questions that are completely new and different. And if you have the mother company holding you back and telling you these are the only places we want you to play, it can be difficult, because that doesn't work that's difficult to do, because how do you
what's the difference between a company acquiring a startup and having their own innovation hub?
So it's the thing is, it's process. It's process and culture and so many things that people would completely and totally underestimate. At the end of the day, you're dealing with human beings.
Yeah.
Human beings respond to incentives.
Yeah.
Human beings are very good at looking at the cultural landscape and figuring out what's rewarded and what's punished. So in a startup, the reward return, that whole system is different. It's kind of like a bunker mentality. You're on a mission. You're like a military force trying to survive, and everybody's together and everybody's skin in the game. Hopefully, that's the kind of best situation that makes a startup move at least in a certain direction, make decision making easy and clear, because you're trying to survive at the end of the day, and you have to kind of find the answer to the problem pretty quickly. In corporate, political type things, people have their own kind of like interests. If this succeeds, will it affect my job? Those types of realities.
Yeah, so actually, now that I worked with Safaricom for about 1 year, and then now I moved to INM Bank, which they also have the innovation unit. They call it IQ. It's to help the bank come up with better products, also refine the existing products. And one thing that I'm slowly learning is that you think about a corporate as it's like this big juggernaut, not moving, isn't it? One of the things that corporates do extremely well that startup don't do. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think about a corporate, like the data management is so good. They've invested in systems where I need data about ABCD. I'm just gonna click here, write some scripts, and then get the data. You go work for a startup, someone stored it in an Excel sheet, another person put it in some NoSQL database, another guy put it in SQL. And they're like, oh my goodness, even just getting the data by itself is a problem, right? So like corporates have figured out because they need that data to report
to run their business.
They need like quarter by quarter reports. Sometimes startups don't have to care about quarter by quarter reports. So
the only report that matters is that we have money in the bank to put another money.
And if you're a data scientist and if you work for a startup versus if you're a corporate, you're likely to get more satisfaction working for a corporate than a startup because the data already exists.
It depends. Like that's a very general, broad statement because it depends on the start. That depends.
Also, like I want to do an experiment about our customers, right? I'm going to pick this group of customers, segment my ABCD stuff, and then set up an experiment, let it run.
So you're talking about a data access problem.
Is it and the company has been existing for the past 20 years.
So they have historicity.
So they have historical data.
But the thing is, that's cool. Yeah. But if your job is just to but if your job is to build new products, or how those get funded and how those get green lighted and how those, you know what I'm saying? So if you want to move fast, it can be challenging. But anyway.
Yeah, because was it like yesterday or the day, I was listening to Freakonomics podcast. It's called Honey, I've Built the Economy. Is a podcast. And they're comparing about home-based innovations and how they never, like how the mountain bike was invented, and people were just tinkering, plus so many other things. But this guy who came up with the idea that all like startups or like those home-based, innovations are very good at coming up with a new product. But corporates are very good at refining that product and taking it to the market. Right?
So first of all, if you think about if they are well designed, they can do that. If they actually have that muscle to do that, absorb a thing and take it to market. If they have the culture to do that, so it's not just all corporates can do that very well. I mean, I'm talking from many years of just looking at why businesses, why innovations fail, why they succeed. Like in the Bay Area, you get to be exposed to so many technology trends and hype cycles and so on and so forth, and things that people think, oh my God, this is the next great thing, and then a year later it's dead, and so on and so forth. So, and then there's always this conversation between corporates and startups and that type of stuff. But you're right, there's things that startups do really well, and there are things that the corporates do well. I think the intersection between those two things, where both of them can coexist, is not that large. And so people should know corporates cannot be startups, and startups cannot be corporates.
I think startups are very good at coming up with an idea or doing a point of a concept like, hey, we can actually sell photos to people, blah, 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 just some random ideas. The startup is very good taking that idea and quickly proving that this can work. But taking that to the masses.
That's not true. So if you look at what Silicon Valley is excellent at, is actually doing exactly that. It's actually commercialization of innovation. That's what they're good at. Everything you use on your phone was actually a startup.
But as listening to different things, reading books, and putting all the knowledge together.
Otherwise, if that's true, then every single idea would be bought by somebody, and then there would only be 3 companies in the world.
But as I said, like in the US especially, you find people are very good at coming up with products, but people are very good at putting this product into the market.
But they're not necessarily corporate people.
Yeah, they're not necessarily corporate.
So in the Bay Area, here's how it works.
Yeah.
There are people who are perennially startup. They say, this is my job. This is what I do. I help startups scale.
Yeah.
I help startups go from seed to Series A. Those are things
So they're not necessarily corporates, right? But the corporate already has that machine, right? So think about if you were to launch a product that can reach 20 million people. Probably the only company that can do that in Kenya is Safaricom, who can reach 20 million people.
It depends on what it is. It depends on what it is. And it depends on your timeline, right? If you want to get to 20 million people tomorrow, of course, you don't have the distribution.
Let me give you an example. I think there's a bookshop was called Kalahari, right?
And we've got 2 minutes to go before we close.
Okay.
So we can go all day with this. So let me just ask you a few final questions here, and we can kind of close the podcast because we're trying to make this much shorter than we usually do.
Okay.
And you and I can go till tomorrow. I know.
It's okay.
You and I can go till tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what are some of the lessons that you've learned in this ecosystem in terms of from an innovation standpoint? You've tried different things.
Yeah.
What are some advice you would give to technical people? Because you're a technical person.
Yes.
If you're trying to actually get into the startup game, or you have an idea, you're working on something, what advice would you give to them?
Knowing what to do is important than knowing how to do it. So knowing the problem you're solving, how it's going to affect the market, where you're going to get the money from, is more important than having the technical skills of solving it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Invest some time in understanding the problem. I hire data scientists who can do regressions and deep learning, but they don't know how to apply that to a problem.
How big of a problem do you think this is?
It's a massive problem
in our ecosystem here.
I think a lot of people go to Udacity, Coursera. You find a very nice data set. You run an algorithm on it. You train it. You fine tune it. The prediction goes up. You come work for a bank or another institution. You don't have a good data set. You have to figure out how do I combine this data set? How do I prepare that? How do I clean my data? How do I prepare it? And 60% of the work is doing that. And also, apart from that is, okay, if I do this, I'm going to move the needle by 1%, 2%, what metric am I looking to change? So connecting the business to the technical is a problem, and also just figuring out how to manage all this data and prepare it for analysis.
And even moving it out of data science more into just any kind of idea, right?
Yeah, and some ideas, one of the things I figured out, consumer businesses are tough in Kenya. If you're building a startup, consumer businesses are tough in Kenya because first of all, you need a massive budget for marketing, right? For you to reach everyone in Bungoma, in Moyale, you need massive, because you cannot reach them on radio.
So here's the thing: there's something called growth hacking. That if you can figure out how to drive organic growth, people have figured out ways that you can actually drive growth hacking. So marketing. These are some of the things that most people don't study how startups, not even startups, just how innovation is commercialized. There is a big gap there. People don't, let me explain. People don't even listen to podcasts about how people build things. They don't go deep and treat it like a discipline. They just think, I'll just go and build this thing and then I'll put marketing behind it and it will work. They don't know what growth hacking is. They don't stay on the latest. And so for me, the reality of the situation, like you said, commercialization is the most important part of the innovation process. Correct. I mean, not the most important part. They're both important because if you don't have an innovation, you can't commercialize anything. So for me, it's this. Having blanket statements like that, I always ask, I have found that people don't respect it. They don't respect it enough. They don't really dig deep. They don't nerd out on how to drive a business forward, especially with innovation. They don't do that.
Yeah, because there's somebody who say that if you cannot take it to the market, they don't consider it an innovation. You can create a fancy bike, you can create a fancy TV, a fancy whatever, but the point where you take it to the market.
That's what matters.
Now that's where you move from a fancy product into an innovation. It has to be useful. Someone has to buy it.
Right.
A lot of people have to buy it.
Right.
And if you think that process of how do I convince someone to buy this,
that's the thing.
And many people to buy this. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah. And so the thing is, everybody's so excited about being an engineer and being technical, and they think they've finished the job.
No, it's that's not the end, because if you go to a company and you work with a product manager and think, hey, how can you change this thing about, whether you're engineering a piece of a nice looking microphone, right? You have to figure out what kind of people use microphones, what's the market for microphones, what's the total addressable market.
You got to be a product manager. That's a very important thing you said. Most people, so wow, and that's what Steve Jobs and Silicon Valley do so well, right? They connect the innovation to a market, and their marketing is so important to them.
Yeah.
And it goes, people talk about user-centric design and so on and so forth. But I'm really excited about where we are right now, because we can now start to marry up technical, and I think the technical people in our ecosystem are maybe starting to respect the business side.
They have to. There's something interesting someone told me. I've not researched it. You're saying like when they're creating the MacBooks, they wanted to know what's the best feel of a MacBook. So the way they did like massive research, and like you're gonna carry a MacBook everywhere, and they wanted to replicate the feeling when you carry a baby. So they make the smoothness of the MacBook to be similar when you carry, because you have a very good feeling when you're carrying an infant.
Right.
So like they want, when you're carrying the MacBook,
you should feel good. Like you carry a baby. That's amazing.
And I was like, this is so amazing. Like the length at which they go through to just make you feel nice about the product, because it's about the product and the product and the product.
And this is what, for me, I'm so excited, because we're going into a phase right now where it's really about commercialization of innovation, and that's kind of, in my view, that's my strength too. That's my strength, and that's what I'm passionate about. It's about changing the world for real, and looking forward to working with people like yourself who are deep in their zone. They're good at what they do, and then we can form partnerships and actually build great African companies. That's what I'm excited about. And one last thing that you want to say to our audience. Any last piece of advice or insight or funny thing that, any research that you've come across that you think, anything that you think would be useful?
Oh, wow. I read so many things. And one of the things that I think, from a data perspective, what you know outside data is what will save you. Right?
Interesting.
You can drill into the deep learning, all the fancy algorithms, it's great. But most of the time, what you know, what you can combine outside your data.
In the real world?
In the real world, that's what will normally save you. And for me, that's why I want to work for a bank, I want to work for a telco company, work in different industries, so that I can see how data plays. I also write for the Daily Nation, so I can see how data plays in different things and have this overview of how it is.
How the world is, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what you know more outside data will save you in your data job. And read until
that's another thing.
You read I read history, I read psychology, a bit of it. I read science, I read anything I find interesting. But I think someone asked me, will this data science thing die? I was like, I don't know. I don't make predictions, because in this market there are no experts. You just find something interesting and run with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's been a fascinating conversation. It always is with you when we get together.
Thanks for having me.
You're a polymath, right? you absorb so much information and knowledge. And so that's it for the Chinya Maji podcast this week. It's kind of focused around data science. So all you people who are interested in that subject matter will find something useful in this. And even if you're an entrepreneur, the same concepts apply. So until next time, enjoy the podcast.
Bye.